Okay, welcome. Thank you so much for being here on time and for being here for a really delicious, this is a very special training because sometimes we focus on, strategies and systems and this dovetails with all of that, but this is really like a discovery um, of yourself, your essence, your personality, your energy levels, the way that you authentically move through the world when you're fully in your power, and how to tap into more of that and weave that into your business, to come to your business in full honoring of who you are, who you be, your essence, your energy levels, your personality, and kind of discovering that through the human design archetypes. So, Maggie Ostara is a PhD. She teaches women committed to transformation how to create sustainability and joy in their influential, soul-inspired businesses. And when these women work with Maggie, clients, they deepen their sense of their destiny and true value and are able to translate that into their own definitions of success. So Maggie is also a published author. She's a very arousing speaker. She's a beloved teacher and a highly intuitive and skilled mentor coach. And with expertise also in human design, spiritual healing, and a momentary little blip where my browser froze. So I'm going to go into the more personal introduction of Maggie while I kind of reload. So technical issues. I just want to say I've known Maggie for over 10 years. She has been an active participant in our women's community. And she's also been a mentor. Like, I have paid her for her advice and taken part of her workshops and her offerings. And I love the overlap between her world and the Femme Talks world. And I just am so honored to call her a sister and a mentor and a colleague and a friend. I love how she shows up as a mother, as a light worker, as a healer, and as an incredible business coach and multiple six-figure business maven. She has an expertise in human design, spiritual healing, business development, online marketing, and education. She also has a background in clarity breath work and advanced meditation. And she's created 4 successful businesses since she left her job as the director of women's and gender studies at Columbia University back in 1997. So, Miss Maggie, it is such a pleasure to have you here. I am delighted to have you come and transmit your wisdom, and the floor is yours. And I forgot to mention that the name of this training is Your Human Design Archetype and Your Business Success.
Yeah. Thank you, Jessica. It's always a pleasure. And I think I have met all of you. I don't know who's on the phone, so I don't know who you are, but welcome. And it's great. I just feel like I'm in the sister circle. So I'm really wanting this to be valuable and relevant for you. So the way I'm going to have a little introductory part, I'm going to use a few slides just to help you get some information about the types that you can go back and look at later. Like, I don't expect you to absorb all that, so I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. But this will be recorded, so you can go back and look at that information later and pick out your type and go more into that. And then we'll have plenty of time for interaction and for you to ask whatever questions you want or clarification, or if there's certain things you want me to go into a little bit more deeply, I'm happy to do any of those as time allows. I do also just want to say, yes, I have known Jessica. It's well over 10 years. It's probably closer to 15. And I have to say, there was a point where I took it on as a personal mission. I was like, I want Jessica Hodari to make more money. I want her to be really successful and to make a lot more money than she's currently making. And I'm not going to take credit for it happening, but it has happened. And I'm delighted because I think I had threw a little bit in there for her at one point. And I also just, held the space and the vision. And I was really, because I was very, very clear that that was your destiny. and that you deserved it, Jessica. So I'm
Thank you. That is absolutely true. Thank you so
absolutely
much
true.
for
Yeah,
weaving that in.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do this thing here where yes, okay. So, so let me just say a couple of things. So, human design is a very complex system, right? And I don't want to overwhelm you with information. And so what I wanted to really focus on was something that I think is super important for entrepreneurs and is very critical to your business success. And that's decision making. I mean, have you ever been overwhelmed by all the possibilities and choices that are before you as a self-employed person? I mean, do you ever feel confused about what you should focus on and when? Like what are the timing for things and what should you do? Or about what business model you're going to use, or what rates you should charge, or how to best promote your work. I mean, there's so many different choices that we have to make as solopreneurs, as self-employed people. And so I know I have felt that way a lot. And I was trained in a particular way as I got my business training. I worked with a high-level business coach for 5 years and got a tremendous amount of training with her. And then also I've worked with others, but she was kind of my primary training ground. And none of what she taught had anything to do with human design. So I was really taught that kind of, if it's to be, it's up to me. I'm in charge here. I can make things happen. And I had a lot of energy. And as an Aries sun, I really believed that was my destiny, that was the way I was designed to engage with the world. But it turned out that I was completely wrong. And the funny thing is, when I first came across human design, which was about 8 years ago, I think 7-8 years ago now, I dismissed it. I dismissed it because I thought that can't be accurate. That's not me, because I'm a pure generator and I am designed to respond, not to initiate. We'll get more into that. But I was like, what do you mean? I've been initiating my entire life. That can't be accurate. Well, a burnout later, a lot of success, made a lot of money, lots of clients and big long programs and the whole deal. But I got really burned out. And I was like, why is this happening? And it also wasn't the first time that I had gotten burned out in my life. So I don't know if any of you can relate to that. I think, unfortunately, burnout is far too frequent, in general in our world. But certainly for women, and certainly for women who are entrepreneurs or solopreneurs. And it's one of the reasons I love, Jessica, your approach and Femme Talks, and the way that you're really teaching everyone is to be able to do this without exhausting yourself. And I think that's critical. But what I love about human design is it actually gives you an understanding about who you are, and it gives you a map and strategies for what to do instead. And it's funny, I was just talking to a client this morning, a coaching client, and she said she's taking a program that I'm teaching right now. And she had gone and looked at all of her gates, all the different parts of her chart. And she said, I was a little freaked out because it was like a carbon copy of me. I was like, oh my gosh, there I am, like in this chart. And I said, yeah, it's trippy, isn't it? Yeah. So some of the things that, that my clients will say, people who've had readings will say things like, I feel so more on purpose. I'm so much more relaxed, and yet I'm getting so much more done. I don't doubt myself in the way that I used to, and I feel more confident about the decisions that I make, and I'm not so concerned about what people think anymore. I actually know now how to work smarter, not harder. I understand my intuition. I understand what the type of intuition I have. I know how to utilize it, and I trust it a lot more. And then this is one that I've had, but I have heard from people is I now see that there are things that I thought were defects in my personality are actually part of my superpowers. I just needed to learn how to really utilize that energy. And one of the things that has certainly been true for me, and is true for powerful women in general, or if you have a lot of energy, is that we have to learn how to really utilize our energy for our lives, for our businesses, for our families, for, you know, our pleasure, for our joy and play. And human design helps us to understand where our energies are, because I don't know about you, but I sometimes have had, less and less now, but the experience where it feels like my energy almost takes a hold of me, and I almost take a back seat and my energy is running my system. It's like orchestrating some experience. And then later on I go, what was that? Like, why did I say that then? Or why did I do that? Or why didn't I say something then? Or, you know, why didn't I move forward with this? You know, I could feel it, but, you know, so the thing about human design is it can help you understand all of those pieces, and then know how to take anything that may have felt like challenges in your life, or even, like I said, there are certain things in me that I kind of consider defects. You know, that's how I was, you know, people saw me, you know, what people said about me, and then how to actually take that and turn that into an asset. How to be like, you know what, that is really potent energy, and I can grab a hold of it and I can utilize it now. And so that's been a huge, huge benefit for me, and my life is so much different. Human design came around again about 2.5 years ago, and it really confronted my self-concept. So if you, as it did the first time where I dismissed it. So even going through this that we're going to talk about today, if you ever feel like, wow, this is confronting some of the ways that I understand myself or who I thought I was, you're not alone. I think it definitely happens, because human design is actually quite countercultural. In a lot of ways. I think it's far more accurate. I think it's really liberating, but it's also against the grain of how we've been conditioned to think about who we are, to think about how to engage with life, to think about what, you know, how we should do business, certainly, but also how to be in relationship, how to relate to the earth, how to relate to our bodies, and all of that. So, so human design really reveals how we process energy. And I do want to switch to some slides in a minute, but what I want to say is that we all have all of what is seen in the chart. And human design is an evolution of 4 different esoteric spiritual traditions. It comes from, based in the Chinese I Ching, and the Indian chakra system, as we understand it in the West, which it just has 7 chakras. There's actually many, many more, but how we understand it in the West is there's 7 chakras, and in human design, there are 9. And then the Western and Eastern astrology, and also the tree of life from the Kabbalah, which comes out of the Judaic tradition. So it draws on all of those, but it's also an evolution of them. And it feels like it's bringing forth this kind of divine wisdom that we need here on the planet right now. And it was divinely given. And so as we receive it, my invitation to you is to take it and try it on and see how it works for you. I love what Ra, he's the man who received the system. He said, you know, I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. Human design is only for a small portion of the population, because you have to be at a pretty advanced consciousness level to be able to receive it and utilize it. And he said, so I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I'm planting seeds, and my invitation is take it and try it. Take it and be in a place of possibility. Caroline Casey says things like, you know, believe nothing, entertain possibilities, which I also like. So give it a try. I wish I had given it a try 8 years ago. My life would have gone very differently if I had, but you know, it is what it is. Okay, let me just see if there's anything else I wanted to say. No. Okay, so I'm gonna bring up some slides here, just so we have a little bit of visual to go with this, because it is a visual system. Okay. Then I'm going to bring you over here where I can see you. Okay. All right, so this is our title of our talk. So this here is the full human design mandala, which I think is really beautiful. I'm not going to really talk about it today, but I wanted to just show it to you because it's really quite extraordinary. You'll see around the outside is the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. Inside of that are the numbers of what we call the gates in human design. Inside of that are the symbols for the astrological signs. And then inside of that is what we call the body graph. And that's probably the thing that you're most familiar with if you've had your chart done before, or if you've ever just even seen anything from human design. You would have seen this part right in here, which is what we call the body graph. Okay, this is a common way that you might see your chart if you have it run. There's a number of different programs that are out there now. But this is a very common one. This is just from, it's called Just Now because it's not a person. I just ran it at a particular time. But I wanted to show you kind of what it looks like. I'm not going to go over all the parts of the chart because it's just too much information for us to go into. But I wanted you to just have a sense of it in case you hadn't seen a chart before. Just a couple things I want to say about it is that the basic structure of the chart is always the same. So the geometrical shapes, which are the centers, are always in the same place. The lines that connect them, which are called channels, are always in the same place. And the little numbers that are on here are always in the same place. It's always the same numbers, always in the same place. I get that question a lot, so I like to just answer it up front. What changes is what's colored in. And what's colored in is what makes you uniquely you. So if like some of these centers are colored in and some are not. The ones that are colored in is we call defined. The ones that are white we call open or undefined. Okay. Same thing with the channels. You see some of them are colored in. Some of them are not. And here is just a gate, which is defined. Okay, but not the whole channel. So that's what's different. And all of that information comes from what's over here on this part of the chart. Okay. And just so you know, I was always kind of bothered, being an embodied person, I was always kind of bothered by the shape of the human design chart. So I made my own as a logo for me and for all of you because I wanted to put the centers inside the body, and then I wanted there to be a woman figure. So all right, so let's talk about the human design types, which is what we're talking about in terms of the archetypes. There's 5 different types in human design. Most of us are either generators or manifesting generators. We make up 70% of the population. And it's about evenly split between generators and manifesting generators. Then there are projectors. About 20% of the population are projectors. Manifestors make up about 8 to 9% of the population, and reflectors are a small portion of the population. In the class that I'm teaching right now, I ran this same kind of statistics, and it breaks out fairly consistently in terms of what is generally taken as the percentages, which and those percentages come from Jovian Archive, where they have literally they've run millions of charts. So these percentages come from that archive. So that was interesting to me. We have a little bit more generators, a little bit fewer manifesting generators, and a little bit more projectors. Okay. So some of the characteristics of pure generators is we're the builders. Okay. We're the builders. I'm a pure generator. We're the builders of the world. We have almost inexhaustible life force energy. We're designed for mastery through finding our right work and then working it, and learning mastery over the period of our lives. We have the most powerful motor in the chart, which is the sacral center, and that is that center of life force energy. My teacher, she likes to say we're built for work and sex. So because we've got that primary life force energy. And we're not designed for initiating. So this is the thing that really blew my mind when I discovered I was a generator. I mean, what do you mean I'm not designed for initiating? But it turns out generators can burn out when they are initiating. And when I got that, I went, maybe there's something to this. And our greatest power as a generator comes when we are responding to what's showing up in our outer world. Our strategy, every type has a strategy. Our strategy is to respond to what shows up in the outer world. And I can talk more about that later. When we're in the Q&A, it'll probably come up. Okay. Manifesting generators are also generators. They also are designed for mastery. They also have the most powerful motor in the chart, and they're also most powerful in response. Okay. They have that sacral energy. What they do have, this is a little bit technical, is they have a motor to the throat. So they just have this powerful energy going to the throat, which is the center of expression and manifestation. So that makes them a little bit different than generators. It tends to make them be super fast. Manifesting generators, like if you ever run across somebody who seems to bend time, they seem to get more done in a certain, in a certain period of time than you can even imagine. Chances are they're a manifesting generator. Although people have said that about me too, but they can have a lot of efficiency because they skip steps. They can find like shortcuts. They can also go too fast and have to go back and fix things because they skipped a step that actually turned out to be important. So when I am coaching manifesting generators, sometimes what I need to do is help them to just, you need to slow down just a little bit and have somebody else check to see, are there any important steps that are missing. They're also most designed to respond, but they also, because they have this really powerful forward motion in their energy field, in their aura, they need to let people who are around them know what's going on before they act, because it's really helpful rather than if you're around a manifesting generator, and this is true for manifestors too, who we'll come to in a minute, you can kind of feel like you're in the way of a speeding train and you can get knocked over. So if you are a manifesting generator or someone you love is, you might want to, be able to say, hey, let me know before you make some of these decisions because they actually affect me. Okay. Projectors are about 20% of the population. Our dear Jessica is a projector. And projectors are here, they're designed to guide. They're here to be wise. They are like the orchestrators. So, right? And the manifesting generators are the builders on steroids. The projectors are the ones that are kind of out of the fray, and they're kind of orchestrating, like they're helping generators stay on track, helping guide us and make sure that we're, not skipping too many steps and that we kind of know where we're going. Because sometimes we get so, head down, building, or, that we need somebody to kind of tap us on the shoulder and say, honey, slow down. Let's take a look at what you're doing. So projectors do not have that primary life force energy. Okay. And so they need to rest more than they can burn out easily if they're not taking care of themselves. It depends on how many motors they have. That's a little more technical. And projectors actually vary very widely from each other. There's many differences among projectors, whereas generators tend to be a little bit more similar to each other. And the projector's strategy is to be invited. It's to wait to be invited. Because their wisdom is so precious, they really don't want to waste it on people who aren't paying attention or who aren't their people, right? So again, that's a strategy we can talk about a little bit more in the Q&A part. Manifestors are the only type that are designed to initiate. And I love this way of thinking about them. They're really here. They have super propulsive like energy. And they're here to create waves from what they do that generators then get to respond to, if that makes sense. And it's also their job and the job of generators to invite projectors. So manifestors do some of the work of the world, but they don't have that kind of they also do not have the life force energy that generators do. Only generators have that. Manifestors do have a powerful manifesting and creating energy, But over time, they can definitely get burned out. I've run into some burned out manifestors because they just went, and then they crashed. And so their strategy is, yes, to initiate based on their inner creative impulses or on their intuition. But it's also to let people know who are in their impact field, the people who are going to be impacted by what they do, to let them know. And having been in a close relationship with a manifestor, I can say it's really nice if they also have dialogue and kind of see, well, is this going to work for you too? Or how's the timing? Or how's this going to work, for both of us? It's not about asking permission. I think a lot of times manifesting kids, they get beaten down as kids and they're told, you have to ask permission before you get to go out and stay out all night or whatever it is, right? So it's not about asking permission. That would make a manifestor crazy. But it is about being able to inform and let people know. Then the last type are reflectors, and they're very interesting because they have no defined centers. So all of those geometric shape on their chart would be white. So they are picking up energy from other people and amplifying it all the time. The parts of our chart that are white is where we're picking up energy from others and amplifying it. And the colored parts are where we're sending out like a radio wave. We're kind of going dee, 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 with our colored parts, and the other people pick it up and amplify it. So with reflectors, they're really reflecting the community of the people they're around. They're really reflecting the people they live with, the people they work with, and their immediate community. And it's really important for reflectors to find the right people, as you might imagine, because they're bringing in their energy and reflecting it. They can be very wise observers because they're kind of looking at everything. They can be extremely powerful. Like a reflector who is really on purpose and well-resourced and really in her power, when she walks in the room, she can be super powerful, because if you think about it, she's gathering energy from everybody in the room and amplifying it. So it's not that they're weak, and it's also not that they're necessarily overwhelmed and overstimulated by everyone's energy too, if they know how to manage having this design. They do need time to make decisions. They do need to rest. They can burn out relatively easily, partly because if you think about it this way, they're taking in other people's energy and amplifying it, but it's not actually their energy. So they need to let it drain out. Same with projectors. Jessica, I know you need a lot of downtime. You need alone time. Here you are running all of these different groups. You're taking in other people's energy, and you need to just let it drain out so that it doesn't fry your circuits. So that's really true for projectors, and it's true for reflectors, and to an extent it's true for manifestors when they're around generators a lot. Generators, not so much. We tend to just be kind of like, energy, engines. So it can be that way, but often not quite as much. Reflectors have an interesting strategy, which is to tune in for 29 days or longer, because they're very connected to the moon. Again, if that's of interest, we can talk about that more. Okay, so types of strategy, just as a review, I just said briefly here, one, which is most common, is to respond, okay? And that's about being patient, being very magnetic, so that you're attracting things into your life and into your field, and then to be observant about what's showing up, and then responding to what shows up. So that's for generators. For projectors, again, be patient and be magnetic. The most important thing that a projector can do is to really be, and this is true for generators also, but is to be so connected to your purpose and your passion and what's exciting you about your life that you're radiating that, right? You're radiating that. You're getting emotionally involved in it. And you're not allowing yourself, to go down a really negative path. You're really paying attention to your vibration, because what'll happen is that people will be like, oh, I'm sure it happens to you, Jessica, and probably to you too, Liz, because Liz is a projector. It's like these two women, like they totally radiate, and they probably come up, oh, so tell me, what's going on with you? What are you involved in? Because they'll invite you to share with them because you're so radiant, right? So that's one of the things that is really on the side of projectors. Manifestors, they can initiate based on their inner guidance. And like I said, it's good if they inform the people in their lives ahead of time, have a conversation. And then for reflectors, it's just take your time. Don't allow yourself to be pushed into decisions before you're ready, which, in our culture is pretty hard. That's also related to our authority. And this is kind of the last piece of the teaching that I want to give here. So the authority and your strategy are the ways that you make decisions. So just circling back to where we were. So for generators, we have this sacral energy, which is basically in your womb space or your hara. And it's this most powerful energy. And it's, we get to, if you're a generator, your strategy is to trust your gut, is to ask your gut yes, no questions, to which it will respond, uh-huh, or uh-uh, and to go with that. Simple. It's not complicated, but it also is very, very different than the way we've been trained to make decisions, which is generally to be logical and strategic, to analyze everything, has lists of pros and cons, create scenarios about where it might go. And all of that can be okay, particularly if you have a lot of logic in your design. But one of the things we say in human design is never make decisions with your head, because your head isn't designed to make decisions. There's no energy, there's no power up in your head. All your power is in the lower part of your body. So, so for generators, we make decisions with our sacral. For manifestors and projectors, if your spleen is defined, okay? If your spleen is defined, that the spleen is the center for intuition, really instinct. It's kind of a instinctual intuition. And there is intuition in other parts of the chart. And so for manifestors and for projectors, and to a certain degree for reflectors also, using your intuition for making your decisions is great. If you're a manifestor and you have your ego center or your will center defined, that's a really powerful engine that can give you a very strong impulse of a yes or no. Should I go in this direction or not? For projectors who do not have their spleen defined and they don't have their emotional solar plexus defined, they have an interesting strategy. And that's really to talk through whatever their decision is to talk it out with a quality listener. They don't need advice necessarily, but what they do need is they need to be able to talk through what they're considering. And what the way that I like to explain it is, it's like they're bringing all the wisdom that is inside of them, and it's coming out through their expression, and then they get to hear it. They get to hear it, and they get to go, oh yeah, that's the way it should go. So it's actually, it can feel a little amorphous. And for some projectors, when they get their chart done, it actually says no inner authority, which I think is not fair. At least I would say really it's more about your intuition through your self-expression. And then we talked about the reflector with the lunar. I do want to make this one comment about emotional. If your emotional solar plexus is defined, your emotional center is defined, and half of all types except for reflectors are defined there. You have to take time to make decisions. You have to slow down, and whatever your strategy is, whether that's your intuition, whether it's your gut, whether it's talking it through, you need to do that a little bit over time when you're in different emotional states. So, because anyone who's emotionally defined is going to have an emotional wave. Sometimes you're going to feel more up, and sometimes you're going to feel more down, or you might think of it as more expanded and more contracted. You might think of it as more happy or more melancholy. None of this is good or bad. It's just how it is. But what you want to do is you want to look for a consistent response when you're feeling different in different ways emotionally, and you're looking for a consistent yes. Because if you get an inconsistent response, basically what it means, if you say yes and move forward on something that you're getting an inconsistent response to, you're going to have an inconsistent experience with it. So like if you're considering entering into a new relationship with someone, you're getting an inconsistent response, Some days you might feel really in love with this person, and another day you may be like, why? Why? Why am I here? So you want to ideally save yourself from situations like that and be able to, you know, have a clear decision. Okay, that was a lot of information, but in order to give you decision making and types, we needed to go over that. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to cancel the spotlight, and I think I can do that. And then, Jessica, can people unmute themselves to talk, even if we mute? Yes, okay. So I'm happy to talk about anything, answer any questions that you have, whatever you want.
I saw Alina wrote a question in the chat box.
Oh, in the chat? Okay.
It looks like she was
saying only generators and manifesting generators have a defined sacral. Was there something more to that question or something else behind it?
No, I was messaging with Vivian and she said she's sacral, but she is actually a projector. So I was wondering if that's possible.
No. If you are a, no. That's the definition of a generator, is that your sacral is defined. So no, but it doesn't mean you don't have access to sacral energy.
No, she said she was splenic. I misunderstood.
Okay. So let me just reiterate, we have access to all of the energies in the chart, but if we have them, if they're defined, if they're colored in, then we have ongoing, ready, reliable access to that energy pretty much all the time, unless we're rejecting it, which we can do. Like sometimes people reject their emotional energy, like women learn how to do that, for example. Men really learn how to do that too, right? Or we learn how to reject our power, and so we can reject it and suppress it. But that can create illness and kind of wonky disharmony in your energy field that people can feel. So, but generally speaking, you do. And then the white parts, you borrow those energies from other people, and then you amplify them. So you take a projector and a generator together, the projector is going to pick up that sacral energy and amplify it. And that can be really great for work and really great for sex. So, but that projector also needs to take time away so that she can drain that energy out. Otherwise she can get like kind of overstimulated with that generator energy.
Lisa was asking to have the lines explained and also what a gate is.
Lisa, I don't think you were here. I did talk about that kind of at the beginning. Were you here at the beginning? Oh, this Lisa. Okay. We've got two Lisas now. Yeah, we've got two Lisas.
I think I was specifically wondering about the lines that are colored in, but colored in only partially, or colored in between undefined. Are they gates? Is that the right word?
Yes.
Okay.
So
the gates are the symbols, correct?
So let me go over it briefly. I don't want to go into a dive of reading the whole chart. I'd really love to support you with your decision making, but because I've spent years learning this stuff.
Sure.
But let me just say, okay, so it'll make more sense if you are looking at this.
Oh,
okay. Let me just share this real quick, okay? So everybody can see. All right. So can you see the chart? Everybody can see the chart?
Yes.
Okay. So the geometric shapes are the centers, okay? So those are all the centers. Those are the 9 centers. The centers are connected by these lines, which are called channels, okay? There's 9 centers. There's 36 channels, okay? And then there's 64 gates, which is the numbers. Okay, so you can see there's a lot of different pieces of information. And every single one of those, the 9 centers, the 36 channels, and the 64 gates are all archetypes. Okay, so that's well over 100 archetypes that the chart contains. And each archetype has a higher expression and a lower expression. So there's a lot of information there. Now, when you see this line colored in, that means that this channel is defined. Okay, this is known as the channel of sales, actually. And then when only half of it is colored in, that means this 45 right here, which is the queen or king gates, sovereign royalty energy, is defined. But the other half of it down here, the 21, is not defined, so it doesn't make a channel. And what makes the centers defined is when there is a channel that's defined that connects them. Okay, just as a kind of quick, you'll see here, each of these has a channel that's defined, that's connecting the different colored.
And what about the colored, multicolored lines versus the single lines?
You know, I don't want to get into that really, but the thing I'll just say is that if you have a checkerboard lines, then it means it's a strong theme in your life, whatever it is.
Thank you. That's all of it.
It means it's defined more than once. It shows up more than once in these numbers over here. Yeah. Okay.
Lisa Denon Young had a question about manifestor and sales. Lisa, do you want to just speak your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I was the person who was on the phone earlier, so it's nice to see everyone face to face. Yeah, so I'm a manifestor. I also have my chart up here, and I've dug into human design in the past. And I really appreciate that you just said something about sales, sales lines as a manifestor, knowing that my strategy is to initiate, and knowing that I think that was the 44 line is basically half, and it's the red and black together. I think my question is, what does that look like in context, initiating in sales?
Well, you're one of the people who can actually utilize all of the sales techniques that are out there that are being taught in mainstream sales training. Most of us can't. Most of us, like, if a projector were to initiate the way that a manifestor would, it would not go very
well. That's so true. Oh my God.
Right? So yeah, so basically, Lisa, you can approach someone. You can say, hey, like let's say you know somebody, and you're like, you get a hit, like this person, either you know them or you talked to them before, or you get a hit that this person is an ideal client for you. You could go up to them and you could say, you know what, you are an ideal client for me, and you're going to work with me because it's going to be great.
There's something I've never done. Okay.
Like claiming a client. Now, a manifestor could do that. Now, you wouldn't want to just do that with anybody because it could be obnoxious. But if you do it with somebody who you actually have already met, you have something, you know, or let's say you're in a sales conversation, right? I mean, anybody can do a discovery session if you enter into it correctly. Okay. But you're somebody who could actually say to them, you say, you know what? You're an ideal client for me, and we should work together, and really we're going to, and it's going to be great. And they're the type of person that might just go, oh yeah, awesome. Now, if they have a defined emotional solar plexus, you would want to give them some time to make a decision.
Okay, I also do, so yeah.
Yeah, because you don't want to overwhelm them with your power, which is one of the things manifestors can do.
Okay, that makes sense. So being able to give the time and space. Yeah. Okay.
Well, and if you run their chart, so this is a great tool for you if you with clients, is if you run their chart and you can see, and if you see they have a defined emotional solar plexus, you can say, I get that you need some time. It's cool. Or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And then let me just say this thing about projectors, since sales is up here, is it's not that projectors can't do sales. Obviously, Jessica has, figured that out very well, right? She's offering things all the time, but she's offering to a community that has invited her to be in touch with them, right? They've come to her events, right? They've reached out to her. They've opted into her list. And so it's not that she has to be invited every single time. It's that she has to enter into a relationship with someone correctly, which is that she's been invited, right? And so if she's putting out, for example, she's got, an opt-in on her website, and she's there and she's rating what she's really excited about, and she's got these really beautiful images. And Jessica, you get away with having a lot of photos of yourself. A lot of projectors that wouldn't fly so well with, but I think because you're so luscious and your presentation is such a great match for your brand, it's all kind of it's kind of seductive, really. It's all kind of like, come into my world, like the world is really good here, right? And so in a way, it's not about you, right? It's not like she's saying, I'm just a Hikadari and I'm awesome and you should come and work with me, right? That's not what she does. She's like, there's this world and you can be part of this sisterhood. And what does it feel like to be a part of it, right? It's a different type of presentation, right?
Yeah, I'll just speak to that real quick because I know we're a community of entrepreneurs, and so headshots and photos and things like that, the photos that I use for my marketing, I was like deeply in the embodiment of like my kind of values of like rest and receive, or like there was just certain things I was like, what is my brand? And I did that discovery and I was embodying those. I was transmitting while those pictures are part of my transmission. So you're right in that they don't really have as much to do with me, but like I was embodying resting and receiving or powerful creatress or whatever. And I don't know how that would translate to each human design archetype, but that little tangent, if you're doing photos, that it's less about like, but really like aligned with what is your message, what is your transmission. So I don't know if that just works well for me because I'm a projector, or how that would translate, like how message and image would translate for other archetypes. That might actually be that's my question. And it looks like we have some more questions on the side, but yeah, I guess let's segue into, we all have a brand and an image. How does that maybe translate a little bit differently for each archetype?
So, Belinda, I don't know what your question is really about. So maybe you could just say what you said. What if? Yeah. Well, then it is.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the first question I had was, just because there's something so special about having all the centers undefined, as in the reflector, I wondered if having them all defined had some converse or a complementary intensity.
People who have all of them defined are very rare.
Okay.
Way more rare than reflectors, oddly enough. Like I've done a fair number of readings for reflectors.
Yeah.
Never seen anybody with all their centers defined. I'm sure they exist. Valencia, do you have all your centers defined?
My niece does.
Your niece does? Okay. I'm sure they exist. Is that you, Belinda? Do you have?
No, it's actually my husband.
Oh, okay. So I'm sure they exist, but I mean, I don't have any data on them because they're not a type.
Oh.
They're going to be a generator.
Yeah, definitely. But I do have one question. You talked earlier.
Well, let me say one thing about that, which is that definition, gives you ongoing, ready, reliable access to those energies.
Right.
But it can also make you fixed.
Thank you.
So people who have a lot of definition can be kind of rigid, depending on their personal growth path. Now, let me just say, everything can morph. Okay, nothing is set in stone in the chart or in us. I don't believe that. Okay, and people who have a lot of definition tend to be kind of set, right? They're kind of like, they're set in their ways. Now, having said that, I have a friend who has 8 defined centers and only an open throat, and she's fairly flexible in certain ways, and not in others. Like there's certain ways in which she's, you know, so like I said, none of this are absolutes, but that is the thing. I was in relationship with that manifestor who had 7 out of 9 centers defined, and he was so like, because I have 5 open and 4 defined, and I just found him kind of rigid. Kind of, you know, it was hard to kind of, I'm a little more, it could go this way, it could go that way.
Right.
Let's try this, let's do that. And he was a little more like, it's like this, right? So it can be that way.
I do have a question about myself, in fact. I am curious, I'm a generator, and I have an open, I have a sacral authority, and I have open head and open emotional area. And in all of that, when you talk about being magnetic in terms of the being patient, magnetic, and observant, I wrote those things down. Magnetic is not, I couldn't understand what you meant. And I guess I'm just sort of trying to understand how it kind of applies to my chart.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great question. So, and I didn't go into it, so that's why
no,
you understood it. And becoming magnetic is good for all of us. Okay. And I think it's not as important for manifestors, but I think it is good for all of us. So let me just take a really quick snapshot at how law of creation works according to human design. Okay. So according to the story of human design, we use our head. Okay, we've got a head and an ajna, and the head is for inspiration. Okay, it's for possibilities. It's not for decision making. Okay, it's for imagination. Okay, it's for you know what if, imagine this. Okay, that's what it's for. So you create your intentions up in your head, right? Wow, it could be this way. It could be that way. And then you discern what are of the intentions, and actually you start to use what I call generative questions. So for example, I wonder what it's going to take for me to make $200,000 in 2020. I wonder what could be the best business model for me so that I could be sustainable while I am, really bringing in a lot of revenue. I wonder, what kind of resources I'll need for that, and what are the opportunities that are going to come to me? Wow, it could be this, it could be that. I wonder, how do I need to prepare for what is going to, for what needs to happen? And I can start getting excited about the possibility of making $200,000 this year, because I'm starting to generate ideas and questions about how could that happen, right? And then I start to get emotionally involved. So I use my emotional power, which is our creative power in human design. I use my emotional power to get emotionally involved. That then calibrates what in human design is called the magnetic monopole, which lives in the G center, which is part of the heart. And the magnetic monopole is a one-sided magnet. All it does is attract. And it determines what you attract into your life. And so when you are in a state of possibility and you're getting involved with possibilities that you like, not the possibilities that you don't like the possibility of what if I only make $20,000 this year and I only made 15 last year, and what's going to happen then? And you start getting worried, right? That'll calibrate your magnetic monopole, and that's what you'll attract into your life. Okay. So when you get into that state of positive possibility, and you're fueling that on a regular basis, and you're getting emotionally involved, what'll happen is that things will start showing up in your life that you then get to respond to. Because your aura, so generators have an aura that go like this. We're the ones that really have that. If you've ever seen those pictures from Heart Math, you know, where it's that magnetic field of the heart, right? So generators are the ones that really have that big type of aura. And so it's very magnetic, right? And just attracts things into our life. And then you'll get to respond, right? Like I have a client who is a generator, who has been doing a job she does not like for a while. And that's one of the reasons she decided to coach with me. And so we needed to get her prepared to do something else, because she needed to clean up some stuff in her life so that she could become resourced. She could become more, have more energy and more vitality. So she did that, right? And now she's got a lot more vitality. And she has, and she's been kind of in this state where she's like, okay, what's next? I'm starting to feel like what's next. And she started being kind of in this state, more of a state of possibility, because she'd gotten enough resourced, right? She had to get resourced before she could really be in that state and really become magnetic. Well, she told me yesterday, she just got a call out of the blue from a new center in her town that is setting up this kind of wellness and detox center. And she's like a food energetics, chef type of person. And I'm like, well, how did they find you? And she goes, I have no idea. They just called me and they wanted me to come in and talk to them about their center and talk about the, possibilities of me participating in what they're doing. That is magnetism, right? Now, I did say to her, I often say, it doesn't mean you get to sit at home and wait for the phone call. But you do need to be where people can see you. You need to go to Femme Talks or whatever. But I thought that was hilarious. I was like, wow, she really did just sit at home and wait for the phone call, and it came.
Maggie, could you take a moment just to share with women how they can find out more from you, or how any way to contact you or get more information or resources that you
are we done? I thought we were until 5:15.
No, we're slated until 5:15.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yes, I would be happy to. I actually have, I don't know, I'm just excited. So I want to keep telling you about human design. I want to show you this slide because it's actually on there and it'll be easier. Where's the share?
And if you want to put a link or something in the chat, then I can post that with the video in the vault.
Okay, it's on the slide. It's on the slide here. So, okay. So what I wanted to do is, I don't usually do half-hour intro readings. Lisa and I actually did one yesterday. They give you a taste, okay? But they could give you a pretty good taste. And this is what I offered when I was at the salon in whenever that was, November. So it's like a 30-minute taste, okay? And they're $97. And so it's just like an opportunity for you to get, a dive in a particular area, or if there's something that really jumps out to me about your chart. Then if you want to take a deeper dive, we do a 60-minute reading. And I prepare for those. I record them. I give you some materials ahead of time for you to study. It's much more in depth. I give you different versions of your chart. There's a variety of different versions that you can get. So it's a much more in-depth reading. And then you also get a half-hour integration session, like a couple weeks later, where you get to ask questions. You get to, ask me to clarify anything. It's not for more information, because I usually find that the amount of information you get in a 60-minute reading is plenty, for you to digest for a while. And then, but it is to get some coaching, whatever it is that you need, basically. So it's a 60-minute reading plus a 30-minute integration session. And I do give you recordings, audio recordings of both of them. And they're usually $400, but I'm happy to give you $100 off of that. You do need to use a code, which is just FEM, F-E-M, circle, all caps on the order form. And these bit.lys will just take you directly to an order form. So the first one is just bit.ly / HD intro reading. And the second one is bit.ly / HD foundational reading. And so I'm happy, you know, for people in this circle, please don't pass those around. But, you know, anybody who's associated with, you know, either of your circles, Jessica, I'm happy to do that because I feel like it's such a great support. I also, let me just, I'm sorry, I should have figured this out earlier. Are you going to put that in the chat, Jessica? Those?
Yeah, I type with 3 fingers, so I'm slowly typing it.
Another option, if you're not ready to do a reading, but you just want to get some more information, is I do have a human design community site, membership site, and there's a free level, and there's a number of different videos in there that you can just go and access. And then when I do like free webinars and stuff, then I also include them in that membership site. So kind of everything is right there. And what I can do, why don't you, if you want that, because I'm sorry, I forgot to get the URL for that. But I'll send it to you, and then you just opt in for it, and then you're just a part of that. Okay. Did you get both of those, Jessica, or do you want me to put them in?
I think they're in the thing. I had one typo. They're in the chat box.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, those look great. Okay, and then my email is ostara@ostaraexperience.com. So just email me if you want, and if you get any of the readings, you get automatic access to the community site. So just so you know. And then if you get a foundational reading, I give you more information to go with that as well.
Awesome.
Did we have any other questions in here? Oh yeah, Jessica, you were asking about messaging or brand.
Well, it's kind of like what we were talking about, like somebody's getting headshots or they're making a landing page. Like, are there certain, I don't know. I don't know if there's like an authenticity aspect.
Yeah, no, there are. But I do want to answer this question that Lisa Vincenti has. She said, should a person with a totally undefined sales channel approach sales? So let me say this again. You have access to all of the energies in the chart. Okay, just because it's undefined doesn't mean you don't have access to that energy. Okay, you've experienced all of the energies in the chart many times because you pick up those energies being around different people. Okay, it's just that you're going to process that energy differently. You're going to experience it differently. And so it's not, if it's open, if it's white, it's not going to be so consistent, right? If something is defined or colored in your chart, it's almost, and especially if it's red, you might not even be aware that you have it because it's so ingrained to who you are. Where other people, this is where the superpowers part comes in, right? Is you have something that you're like, oh yeah, it's just easy. I just do that. Oh yeah. And somebody else is going, how do you do that? How do you do that? Right? I'm sure you've all had people say that to you about different things, right? And that's probably in your chart, and it's probably in the defined in red because that's the more unconscious part you're not as aware of. If that makes sense. Okay. So I just want you to know that, and you can learn when you like, if you really dive into this and you really, geek out on it, then you can learn to access any of the energies in the chart. Okay. It's just that you can't sustain them over time. Just as an example, I have an undefined emotional solar plexus. I'm an expert in emotions because I've picked up so much emotional energy from other people over the years. I had to learn how to utilize it. And I have really ready access to my emotions. But when I'm on my own, for the most part, unless something's really going on in my life, I'm very kind of neutral emotionally. I don't have that emotional wave, but I can become wise about emotions because I've experienced it many different ways. So Lisa, you can become very wise about sales if you have an open sales channel. But it's because you have you've been around people who have it, you've participated in it, you've checked it out. So, but back to your question, Jessica, because it's a really important one. So, as I said, manifestors are the ones who can kind of, like Tony Robbins, I'm sure, is a manifestor, right? It's like you can have that kind of energy. Now, the thing is that you want to, depending on, kind of your values, you want to see, how much do I want to express that and how, right? And who do I want to attract? But for projectors, for example, generally speaking, it's not a good idea for projectors to talk about themselves on their websites. Okay, because websites are usually, except on the About Me page, right? Because then everybody knows that's what you're doing. But you're not really gonna do that. You want to be talking about who your people are. This is a generally good idea in messaging anyway, but especially for projectors, because what you want to do is write copy that's really, it's like the projectors are inviting your people to be seen in what it is that you're presenting. Like you're inviting them to become part of your world. You're inviting them to learn from you. And the energy, when you really feel so in touch with and on purpose with the transformation that you're going to provide for them, the solution you're going to provide for them, whatever that is, then it's so funny when it blinks like that. I always go like this a little bit. Then you're, like Jessica said, she was so in that state, right? She was radiating it and transmitting it, right? And people can pick that up. So that's what a projector wants to do. It's kind of like, what do I want to transmit, right? And so in a sense, there's this kind of underlying invitation, but it's not a, hey, you need to work with me. If that makes sense, right? For generators, and I think this is really great. This is a really great tip for everybody, because 70% of the population are generators. Okay, so that means most people are generators. So one of the things you can do is have questions on your web pages, questions in your email, because you give generators something to respond to. I think it's one of those reasons, on a lot of pages, you'll see those poll questions at the top. And I used to train people to do that, a lot before I ever came to human design. I'd be like, have those poll questions, give people something to, respond to, help them know if they're in the right place. The questions will help them know if they're in the right place. And I don't think people who knew human design came up with that strategy, but it totally works for generators. It also, to a degree, works for projectors, which is the other 20% of the population, right, who are being invited. So when you ask questions, projectors can also feel invited, right? You're engaging them and bringing them in. But for generators, because you're a builder, and because you have all this powerful life force energy, you want it to be radiating your sense of being on purpose. And so I think it's great when generators and manifestors and manifesting generators talk about their purpose, right? It's like, what is it that's got them so on fire? What is it, what's their passion? Now, and that's different than talking about yourself, if that makes sense, right? It's like, what's the purpose? What's the passion? What's the thing that is fueling what you're doing? Because it's bigger than you are, right? You want it to be bigger than you are. And that's something that is going to draw people in. Right? Manifestors are really kind of the only group where it's more okay for them to talk about themselves, like really talk about themselves. Now, having said that, it doesn't mean you can't tell your story, because a lot of people have storytelling gates and storytelling energy. But it's about how do you tell your story? You know how some people tell their story, it's all me, right? And there's other ways of telling stories that are not really putting your personality forward. the story has a way of actually being something that includes everyone. I actually think storytelling is a really important part of messaging and a really important part of marketing, because narrative is something that draws people in and makes people want to participate, and it makes them relate to you. So does that answer your question, Jessica?
Yeah, thank you.
And, I'm also doing a whole course on messaging made easy by human design, which is a 12-week course. So there's a lot more that you could say about that, but that's kind of the short version by type. Did anybody else put a question in here?
It looks like one of the links isn't working, so maybe get that to me and I can, or text it to us.
Which one isn't working?
The intro reading.
You might have to capitalize the I. I'm not sure.
I don't think for Bitly the caps, I don't think it's a thing.
Oh, it's funny because I checked them both earlier.
Okay, let's see. Maybe you're right. Let's see.
Yep. You gotta capitalize the I.
Okay. Oops.
Okay.
I'll change that on my end over here.
Yeah. I know, it's after the /. It's very particular that way. Okay. Any other questions?
I had a follow-up question, especially since we were talking about manifestors and projectors. I have 4 undefined centers, and I'm curious if that makes me, and I'm also surrounded by a ton of projectors, and I realize, based on what you've shared, that the strategies I've used in my marketing and in my sales are very much projector strategies. I'm curious if that's something not that I should stop, but I can, try a more manifestor strategy. Or
well, how effective has it been for you?
I feel the idea that, I could probably go a lot faster if I was just like, hey, do this. But I also don't want to sound bossy because of exactly what you said about being able to overwhelm people with my energy.
Mm-hmm. And what centers do you have open?
I have, let's see, heart, will center, sacral, and root.
Heart. Wait, which heart? You said heart and will. You mean G center?
G center, yeah.
G center and will center and sacral and root?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're emotionally defined. Okay. And your spleen is defined.
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your head and your ajna are defined.
Yes.
So when you have a defined head and ajna, this isn't a type thing, but it means that you have really powerful thinking, and it's okay to, people who have a defined head and ajna have the ability, you gotta be careful with this, to project their thoughts into other people. Because 7 out of 8 people have an open head and ajna.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so if you think about it, right, they're going to pick up your energy and amplify it.
Yeah.
So what especially when you're around people, but also, you're just going to be radiating that type of energy, is you can, just really be aware of how can you utilize that for good? Because that's a superpower. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would say, don't hold back. Your spleen is a feel-good energy. People are probably going to feel good. People feel good around you?
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
For sure. Jessica's thumbs upping.
Yeah. People are going to feel good around you. And so, and you've got a defined throat, which means you can express. And I would just be like, say your truth. Say your truth, put it out there, and see what happens. Play around with it. Don't hold back. You're a manifestor. What's the motor to the throat? What's connected to your throat?
Let's see. I think I'm answering this question right. 36, that gate is red. Am I able to share this? Actually, I know that there's a share communication.
Because having a motor to the throat is what makes you a manifester, and that's going to be your primary energy. Yeah, so it's either the emotional solar plexus,
Okay. Or the spleen.
no, not the spleen. It's going to be the emotional solar plexus, the will center, but that's open on you. The sacral's open on you. It's probably your emotional solar plexus. Is that connected to your?
Oh yeah, that's my inner authority too.
Yeah.
So I think so.
Okay. So that's what makes you so that means that you are can be really articulate about emotional creative energy.
Good, because that's part of my work.
So use it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Landing deeper.
And help people feel good about it. You know what I mean? Just, and that's the thing, because you have that feel good energy, then chances are, even if you're saying something that's potent, right? You can say it. You don't have to say potent things that, you know, send up people over sideways. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
It's so helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So we're officially at our time. Yeah. So thank you so much. It was delightful to see like all the women that showed up were women from the retreat. I think except for Valencia. But yeah, that was kind of fun. It's like the same group of people. Yeah, well, I'm going to go ahead and put this in your wisdom vault, and I'll include your information, Maggie.
Yeah. And I'd love to do readings for any of you. And I would just say, if this intrigues you, get a professional reading from me, from somebody else. Like, do it. It's really eye-opening.
Yay. Well, let's just give Maggie a little gratitude kiss. Mwah. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, dear.
Kisses
to
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Good to see you all. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time.
I totally geek out on this stuff. So.